Hello and welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm Eric Matei, joined by Kayla Ashlee, the CEO and founder of Spexy, for a conversation about a really exciting topic, and that is team training and development in your modern optometry practice. Kayla, welcome to Akrinos Access.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Always great spending time with you. I love it.
Absolutely. So, well, goodness, look, this is a very hot topic. This is a very hot topic, I suppose, now more than ever before, right? As we're seeing the turnover rates, the degree to which practices are understaffed, to the degree to which also there's a lot of opportunity for practice growth through effective training and development, and really empowering that team that works in the practice. So I know we have a lot of things to get into. So let's go ahead and take it from the top. And let's start with this. When we're talking about training and development, let's first start by kind of like defining what we mean by that.
Yeah. Well, for what that means with us is, training and development is giving your team the tools to be able to be their greatest at, what they're doing in your office. So many training and development, programs out there, just, give a bunch of knowledge. There's a lot of learning, right? There's a lot of consumption, a lot of learning, some of it great, some of it not so great, but a lot of consumption. And what really is great about the development that we provide is allowing for offices to be able to have something to take back and implement, right? Having something to implement in their office when they, the next time, they turn off that video and the next patient comes in, they know what they need to be doing and they've been given the tools to actually implement that.
Fantastic. So I suppose on that note, maybe the first key takeaway here is that if you're, for our viewers that are exploring training and development, hey, really some big opportunity with the practice. It sounds to me like the first thing really boils down to positioning these as tools that can be easily implemented, right?
Yes.
As opposed to just a bunch of well, as we call it within Akrinos, we call it word salad, right? Like let's deliver valuable stuff, not just word salad. So I like what you said about also, you mentioned tools to be great. Why don't you elaborate a little bit about that and maybe speak to this a little bit also from the team member perspective, right? As far as being empowered with these tools.
Yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of tools that I think are critical in an office's, function for the team to be able to function at its highest. The tools of being able to set expectations for the team, but also for the team to have expectations of the leadership, right? So those are
That's
tools
good.
that we give the office. The overall, tools for a team member who's just now, coming in fresh to be able to say, okay, here are all of the stepping stones that I need to reach this level. That's important to be able for, the office to be able to lay out the expectations for the team as far as their growth, not just in their training, but their overall career development is important. So that's something that we lay out for them. And it really allows for a team member to not only see the benefits of, coming into this new practice, but also for them to be able to see that there's a future. So many practices are like, okay, I got to this level and then I got to this level and then I got to this level. Now what? To be able to have something to help further their career is vitally important.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because certainly from our side of things, right, in working with practices for, sustainable solutions to achieve results, right?
Yes.
A lot of it boils down to engaging the team, aligning the team. And in this day and age, it does boil down at times to how much the practice can compensate individuals, right? I mean, I know seen in some markets where, fast food establishments are paying some pretty handsome wages, right? So, so on that note, then tying this back to what you were mentioning regarding career development and kind of this more long-term path that it's more than just a job. To what degree does training and development align to strategic compensation, bonus programs? Like, we start to think about some of these areas of human resources and human resource management that maybe to the practice owner that's only had a handful of employees here and there, maybe is not considering. So why don't you speak a little bit to that, Kayla?
Yeah, I love that term, strategic compensation. We're going to start using that at Spexy because that is exactly what it is that we're teaching, but that's a really great term for it. So strategic compensation, I love that because so many offices, and you may have heard me use the term before, reward for time served. And that drives me crazy. It's not a jail sentence.
Why?
You don't have to serve time.
Why does it drive you crazy? I mean, but hey, think about it. If someone's been working for years and years and years, why does that drive you crazy?
It drives me crazy because it encourages the mentality of if I just put in the time, then I'm allowed to make, a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. It doesn't encourage any sort of growth and strategic growth to allow for strategic compensation. So I really I try to steer practices away rewarding for time served. Now, I do believe that someone who is tenured in your office and has earned their worth should absolutely be compensated for that. The side note that also needs to go with that, though, is that when they're compensated, they also need to be growing. And what are different ways that they can grow and achieve? Sometimes it's little tiny things like, little things in the office that maybe are missed. And, you might work on this with that team member during check-ins, but then, for their annual review, you say, okay, we've been able to do this, you've been able to achieve this, and you've been able to achieve this. Now that compensation that we talked about is going to happen. And I don't think it should ever be a guess, right? How much am I gonna make? What's the lucky lotto number? I think it should be laid out very clearly. Like, we would love to compensate you at this wage next, but we need to make sure we hit these 2 or 3 things, and progress there. And I also think that just because it hasn't been a year, if they've achieved those things and they've proven that that's a new trait or a new quality that they've learned, then reward them sooner. Reward them based upon their performance. I think is absolutely strategic compensation. Using that.
boom. Absolutely. And Kayla, this could be the beginnings of some really fascinating collaboration between Spexy and Akrinos, right? Because from our standpoint, we are digging into the analytics of the practice and coming up with the benchmarks. But to your point, as far as once that development is put in place, identifying where those opportunities is, I think there may be some really cool collabs. Akrinos, Spexy on the horizon. But okay, so something you mentioned, strategic compensation. I love what you said, strategic compensation as opposed to time served. Now, this has nothing to do with respecting and rewarding tenured team members, right? If you've got someone that's been working for you for 5 years and they haven't gotten a raise, I mean,
oh gosh, that's terrible.
Wake up.
Yeah, you're gonna lose them.
That's and if you're not going to lose them, that's just wrong. You're taking advantage of that individual. That's
right.
Uncalled for. So that being said, then honoring tenure, but man, having the strategic compensation with the development plan that's goals oriented. And you mentioned something else, employee review. Why don't you elaborate a little bit on that, about that? Because I think now in this day and age where a lot of doctors and office managers or practice administrators are pulled in so many directions, I think some of these things like employee review or some of these things that sometimes are forgotten about.
Yes, or placed on the back burner forever.
Yeah, right. That'll be next month's plan, right? So why don't you first perhaps maybe let's start by defining what exactly is an employee review, and then maybe share some best practices of how to go about incorporating it into the practice.
Yeah, so what we encourage is involved in an employee review is that it is basically here are the skills that you are contributing to our office that we're super grateful for. And it also allows the team member to to portray their skills, or what we sometimes call hidden skills. Like if I'm an
Hidden
optician,
skills.
yeah, if
I
I'm
like
an
that. That's cool.
optician, okay, hold on. I'm gonna finish that, and then I'm gonna come back and explain it. So we
Okay.
have the skills that are portrayed, the hidden skills, and then the desired skills, right? And the desired skills will be, so the hidden skills would be something like, if I'm an optician, you might not know that I'm really good at art and marketing and creating digital content, right? That's a hidden skill, and it's not something that's necessarily hidden. It's just not being used in the workplace, right?
Sure.
However, that's something that if I knew that about a team member, I might be like, hey, we might want to put Kayla on the social media gig over here, because she actually is really, this is something she really likes. So it's really important to lay out what hidden skills are.
That's
right?
good.
And then desired skills come from both the employer and the employee. Because the employee might say, well, I would love to be able to know how to do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes it has to do within their job role, right? Kind of the advancement of their job role. But sometimes they're like, I would really like to know more about the diseases of the eye, right? And they're not the doctor, but they want to know about that, and to have another advocate in the office to speak to patients with that amount of knowledge is hugely powerful, right? So having these conversations are really helpful. So you have your skills, basically the established skills, the hidden skills, and the desired skills, right? And then what happens is you then have a conversation with the employee about, with these skills that are laid out here, I would love to see you be able to do this. And maybe they have a terrible thing where they always show up late, right? maybe tardiness is an issue of theirs. And I would love to see you on time. You were tardy, I don't know, 15 times last year. We're going to get that down to 3. Like, I really, really, really want you to do this. And we're going to have you focus on this thing, right? So there's 3 things for them to focus on at their annual review. Well, what's really important is that they agree to that, and you say, okay, if you're able to do this for me, and I like to have one be like a growth one, right? Like, help us get more new patients, help us come up with ideas, but it has to be quantifiable, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So what they do at that review is you guys both agree that, okay, this is going to be our goal. And if you're able to establish these things, then we're going to get you to, I don't know, a $2 an hour raise or whatever it is, right? Whatever that dollar hour raise is. And they go, okay. And you go, okay. Now here's the hard part is you got to check in with them. According to us, we recommend that you check in with each employee every quarter. Okay. But let's say you have, 10 people on your team, that gets really exhausting. So what we recommend for these reviews and quarterly check-ins is that you take a morning out of your schedule. Let's just say it's a Friday morning, you schedule out no patient care one Friday morning every single quarter. And that's when you do everyone's either annual review or quarterly check-ins, right? So if
Sure.
their annual review falls within that quarter, that's when you do it. So it's really great because it's already scheduled out for the year. So now you got to do it, right? It's not one of those back burner things. And what's really great is everyone is also, it kind of creates this type of almost camaraderie, because how like you get really nervous like right before you have to go in for your review and you're like,
Sure.
oh gosh, am I gonna? So when everyone else is going through it at the same time, it's really, really helpful because it creates, rather than like, oh gosh, well, Sally's up for her review and who knows what she's going to get, because I know I didn't get anything. You know what I mean? It's all kind of like this.
Sure.
Rather
The shared
than
shared experience. Yeah.
Right. It's more of a shared experience. So people are like, oh man, I missed one of my markers or whatever. We encourage people not to talk money, but we also encourage during the quarterly meetings, we always ask, what is it that the office can do to help you? What is it that the team can do to help you? Because, there's, Kayla is really great at selling anti-reflective treatment, and we wanted you to get better at that as well. Can we connect you and Kayla and have you guys kind of buddy up to be able to do this? And maybe that is Kayla's thing that she needs to focus on, is being a better mentor in the office or something like that, right?
Love it.
So
Love
it's really, really great. Yeah, quarterly check-ins, super important.
So on that note, it seems so we're talking about employee reviews here. You mentioned quarterly check-ins. Love it. Love the concept. Love everything about it. Okay, so now let's take it a step further. again, with our topic here being all about team training and development, let's take it a step further. Are we doing these again? There's an annual review.
Yep.
There's a quarterly check-in.
Mm-hmm.
Is there then a monthly meeting or even a weekly team meeting? What I'm getting at here, Kayla, is trying to get to this point on what have you found? And I think this is almost a rhetorical question. I mean, it's a redundant question, a rhetorical question, what have you. But like, we talk a lot about culture. And by the way, we're going to jump into culture and leadership. Those are the next two topics we're going to jump into. But to kind of transition to those, we think in order for this one-on-one time with team members to be effective and impactful, there has to be open lines of communication. There has to be a level of transparency and inherent trust in the relationship. You don't get that by having a quarterly check-in and a yearly review.
Right.
The only way to get that. So on that note, I know that there's some debate out there. Hey, how frequently should practices conduct team meetings, like staff meetings? What's your take on that?
At minimum once a month.
At minimum once a month.
At minimum once a month for the most successful practices. There are many practices that we have that they do it, they do like a big team meeting like once a quarter, and then they have their like weekly check-ins, and they spend, every Monday morning, everyone comes in early with their coffees, 30 minutes before patient care, and they sit down and they, talk about all of their things and get organized. It's really hard for some offices though, for some office cultures to achieve that, because it sometimes will turn into a griping session, which is what a lot of doctors are afraid of.
Boo. Hey, you know what we say down here in New Orleans? You know what we say down here in New Orleans?
What?
We say, save the drama for your mama. Don't bring it to the workplace. Save the drama for your mama. Okay, so you were mentioning, so at least quarterly. I like the idea of what you said about weekly breakouts, right? I mean, I think the takeaway from this, the takeaway for viewers is there's got to be consistency. If you want to have that, if you want to have that environment that can really operate at its highest potential, it's about bringing out the best in everyone. There needs to be open, transparent dialogue. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be mentorship and all of these things, right? It's not a one and done. We're doing the quarterly meeting and what have you. So, okay, so to pivot then from we had a brief little technical issue where Kayla actually was dropped from this webcast, but she is now all live.
From the call.
We've got Kayla back. I was trying to save it. And click around and be like, all right, I'm going to remove old Kayla from the meeting. So new Kayla can come. But anyhow, okay. So we were actually, but in keeping the conversation going, right? So we were talking about the frequency of meetings. And really getting to the point that it's all about frequency. At the very least, have the team come together on a monthly basis, right? But if a weekly is manageable and attainable, which I'll say it is, and our take, we are all about the weekly, right? Yeah. And I like what you said, in that you're all about the weekly as well. Only you're saying have the weekly be department level. However it's done, whether it's department level or practice wide. Have the weekly get-togethers. What were some of these other keys you said? You want to be sure that every meeting there's got to be some measurables, right, coming out of it. Like there's got to be quantifiables. Right. What else did you mention?
Right. Well, for these meetings, it's got to be something with content, so it doesn't turn into a gripe session. Right?
That's right. Yes.
So you have to have the goals of the meeting, and sometimes it's helpful to even send out an email and just say, hey guys, on Monday we're going to talk about blah blah blah. So that everyone knows what's coming up, so everyone can kind of, mull over it a little bit and think about it a little bit. But, we realize that this is a really hard thing for doctors and team leaders, I should say, to kind of put together with all the, chaos that happens in everyday optical life. Oh gosh, now I have to plan a meeting. Like, yes, it's okay. We encourage you to go over your stats, especially if you are, if they're KPIs that you guys are, looking for growth on and things like that. Of course, you want to run over that, but you also don't want it to be a bore session either, because that bores the heck out of some people.
Certainly.
You want it to be able to be something that you're going to create change from, or adapt from. You want it to be something that you can learn from. And that's why we created, there are a few different things, we might talk about it later, but we've created to be able to have, basically an office can log into the system and be able to have, okay, we're going to learn about this today from Spexy, and this is how we're going to implement it, and this is how it plays a key role in every area of the office, right? Not
Love
just
it.
for the opticians,
Yes.
and not just for the techs. So yeah, but it's important to be able to have, if you have it, if not, we can help, but if you have it, a way to be able to have something that is learned, and something that is tracked, right? So your goals and everything else, and then a goal for the following, for, what are we going to do this week? What is our goal this week? And really try and keep it down to like one focus factor. Like, is it new patients? Is it, Optos retinal images? Is it the special testing? Is it, what is it that we're going to focus on for that week? So just to really set that goal for the team.
Fantastic. So now then, so you can have kind of this mastermind plan you've put together. But then it's a matter of, how do you roll this out? So now, Kayla, now let's shift the conversation again in this vein of team training and development. Now let's shift the conversation to leadership.
Yeah.
And the presence. Why don't you speak a little bit to the importance of leadership and maybe these different leadership and management styles, right? And which you see works best for practices?
The best leadership is, in my opinion, that I've seen work really well, is leadership.
The micromanager, the extreme micromanager that's hovering over you, telling you everything you need to do, that's constantly, they wonder why they can't sleep at night. It's like, worry about yourself, right? Anyhow, is that what you're going to say? The micromanager?
It's totally what I was going to say. No, but the best,
the path to prosperity.
Really are the team leaders who really set proper expectation for the team.
Ooh,
and who have the team's back when there is an issue. They will stand up for their team because they know that they put forth that expectation, and when they know that a team that behaves under this expectation, that's something we're standing up for, right? So it's this yin and yang. It's a self-supporting thing. But it absolutely kills me when, I see on social media that a team member is ranting because, they did everything per policy that they thought they were supposed to do, and then the doctor came out and kind of undercut them, and making a decision with a patient or something like that.
Right.
That really, really hurts me, because I think that it's something that we need to protect our team and take care of our team. And if for some reason there's somebody on our team who's not great, for the overall culture, it is really important that leadership also takes the authority to remove that person, right? Because you don't want one rotten apple spoiling everything else.
So I really like you bringing that up, because when we're talking about leadership, then the next thing is, while in this vein of leadership can go down the path of accountability, which you touched on, it's vitally important. I really like what you said. There's two things. You said expectations. The keys to leadership and getting it done is establish the expectations with your team and represent your team. You said the yin and the yang, and here on my little, I drew a little, I drew it right there. I love it.
Yeah. But that also, let me back up really quick. That yin and yang also is setting the expectations and delivering as well. That's also all part of that. So if you set an expectation, hey team, we're going to reward this expectation, X, Y, and Z. It is your responsibility to uphold and protect your team in delivering that. Don't lie to them. Don't say that we're going to do that and then not do it, right? That's vitally important for you to be able to not only set your expectation and what you want your team to do, but be able to fulfill that and back them up as well. So when you need to pay out, you pay out.
Heck yeah, absolutely. So on that note, in this vein of leadership, establish expectations with the team, right? hey, key call out, I think it goes without saying, you can't hold people accountable when there's no expectation that it has been established.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
you can't hold people accountable and manage tasks if there haven't been any expectations established. But the keys to the
Right.
good leader, the keys to that effective leadership, establish the expectations, but also represent your team. And you do that with authenticity. You do that with compassion. You do that with all of that as being the core drivers, right? So, but then you mentioned culture, and you mentioned also a very important responsibility. Again, while we're talking about team training and development, we're talking about establishing the landscape whereby culture can evolve. And it's important to identify where things aren't clicking. And sometimes things not clicking may be, hey, maybe you have a person in the wrong seat in the office, right?
Yes.
So getting back
Could be.
to what
Yeah.
you said earlier, skills, hidden skills, desired skills. Hey, maybe we're putting them in something that we desire them to be in, but it's not a good fit for them. So I think the
Right.
first important thing to do, if are we sensing that, okay, do we have the right people in the right seats? Does it fit their proficiencies and their mannerisms, if you will? But then the second
Yeah.
thing is that if they do have the capacity to execute the job, the functions of the job, but that toxicity is spreading, let's talk about now how to, as the leader, to stand up and represent your people and identifying that toxicity and taking the appropriate steps to mitigate that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's kind of two different avenues. One is being able to manage the team that is going to, usually the team gets frustrated, right? There's usually some sort of, upsetness, because of a lack of teamwork or something like that going on within the office. So I'm going to address that. And then I'm also going to address dealing with the person who is the bad apple, right? So the team, you need to come up with a great way for the team to be able to approach without it being a griping fest, right? And if this wasn't a G-rated thing, I would say something else, but but they complain about things, right? So basically, you have to allow for what is the tool for them to be able to approach you with this conversation. So somebody comes to me and says, so-and-so is being a punk about X, Y, and Z. Okay. The conversation needs to go, and we have forms and stuff that we've created for our members that it's really helpful to have these conversations with what's the issue? Okay. And then in order to speak about the issue, we need to come up with a few options of resolution, right? Is it that that person didn't have a clear expectation set? Is it that they didn't know? Is it that, they were never taught? Is it that, come up with a few different resolutions that we can go about? Go ahead.
Quick question. Is it ever going to be, I don't like the look on their face, or I don't like the way they do their hair? Is it ever going to be that?
It could be. It could be. And what's really interesting is you understand the superficial.
Please, well, I was going to say, please tell me that's cut off and that it's more around quantitative, right? Because that's entirely
Here's a real
subjective,
issue. Yes.
right? I mean,
exactly.
We gotta separate the subjective, this is what I think, versus hey, are they, because look, at the end of the day, we're here for a job. Everyone's there for the same reason. That's right. Is there's work to be done and compensation to be had.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's what this conversation helps to allow to avoid, is that it's less of an objective thing. It's more of, okay, well, now that I think about it, sometimes the issue is, resolved in and of itself, because it might just be that person's issue or an issue that was blown up. Yeah. So it helps a little bit of self-reflection there. Now, when it comes to a team member, because there are plenty of team members who step out of line, and maybe it's, the ones who just, flirt with the line a little bit. Sure. Try just, they're the ones who just push it just a little bit. How do you keep those people, on a team mentality? And the important part of that, dealing with that one person, is, of course, you have to pull that person aside. You never do it publicly. You never. That's not in good form.
No public
pull that
shaming.
person aside.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You pull that person aside and you have a conversation with them, but you also come up with, you let them speak, their side, but you come up with solutions with that person there. And you let them know also, if these solutions are not met, if this is not happening, it's hurting the culture, right? So someone who shows up late, they might not realize the pressure that puts on everybody else, right? They should. It's common sense, but a lot of people don't. So when you have that conversation with them that, you know what, Sally, when you come in late, it really puts a strain on me. It puts a strain on the patients, and it really puts a strain on, sweet little Sarah that's up front.
Sure.
And we don't want to do that, right? And so what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen? And you document these conversations with these people. So it's not necessarily being written up because it gets such a negative connotation, but it creates accountability with some of the forms that we encourage that people use with, hey, this is what we talked about. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to check in with you at the end of the week and see how things are going and see if you still feel the same way and see. So it creates this solution that's being checked in with, not just it's gone until somebody complains about it again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're going to check in a week, and then we're going to check in a month. And, hopefully everyone's feeling better then. But what really helps is they know that they're going, kind of mama bear is going to be checking in on them, in a week, kind of thing. So,
well, and on that note, I suppose it fires on two key things, right? One is that you've gotten the buy-in, the fact that the solution, number one, you've pulled this individual aside, never in a public forum, right? You pulled that individual aside. You're having that we'll say the crucial conversation sometimes is its term, but you're having that one-on-one conversation with them. You're keeping it objective, but you're also being there open to listen and realizing that, all right, let's figure out a collaborative solution, right? The one thing you never want to do, though, is not address it, right? Because I think that's what, and I don't know what your take is, Kayla.
You can't just hope it's going to go away.
Absolutely. We because we interact with, oh my gosh, practice coast to coast and all sorts of different scenarios with different things going on. And you come to see instances where, unfortunately, some things could have been perhaps nipped in the bud years in advance. But we don't live in the past. We live in the now. So then it's a matter of like, okay, well, hey, how do we become agents of change and, get folks on board around it? So, hey, we've talked about a lot of really remarkable things here. And it's crazy. I'm kind of glancing at the time and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. This is really great. So in the context of this, so we're talking about team training and development. We touched on a lot of really great things. Again, the importance of team, the importance of leadership, expectations, maintaining measurables, having regular touch points. You're talking about quarterly check-ins, annual reviews, weekly meetings. We also talked about, goodness, when we identify things that aren't working so well, perhaps toxicity across the team. How do we go ahead about taking care of that? So a lot of really great stuff. We talked strategic compensation. I mean, really, Kayla,
those are good notes.
Great. You were bringing it. So, hey, so I suppose to kind of wrap things up, for folks that would like to connect with you, continue the conversation, or learn more about Spexy, I suppose first and foremost, why don't you share with us a little bit about Spexy, right? Kind of high level. I know you guys have some really cool things. I know we've got clients that use the platform. Why don't you speak a little bit about Spexy?
Yeah, Spexy is basically an online education resource for tools to help to improve your team in every field. It's not just optical. It's the techs, the front desk, the doctors even can learn a lot in there. So it's team training. We have foundational training. We have sales training. I know some people get so weirded out by the word sales, but if you know how to do it right, it doesn't feel bad, I promise. And the thing is in our optical world, we're taught our trades, right? The doctors go to school to become great doctors. The opticians are trained in this amazing trade of opticianry, yet nobody is taught how to sell. And we're the only medical field that requires a sale of a product for a patient to see, great. That's just the simple of it. And unfortunately, nobody is ever taught how to sell. And so we have all of this training, and then we also have sales training built in there because you need to know how to actually sell. And so in our Spexy courses, it's all online education and training tools for the entire team to know how to work with patients one-on-one, how to create this amazing patient journey, and their role, all the way through the office. And in one of our latest courses, we actually have teaching each person how to save a walkout, how to save a sale. We all know the things not to say, but we're never really taught, what are the tools of what we should say. And so that's a really great course that just came out. So basically, we have memberships now where offices can get basically like Netflix style access to all of our courses, unlimited. And so we have that in a membership called Spexy Plus. And then we also have Spexy Plus Premium, which includes this really cool product called Frame Turn that helps offices really maximize and explode their inventory.
Was that the teaser? I think that was the teaser.
It was the teaser.
We're going to do another one of these. We're going to do another one of these talking about managing frame inventory. Wow, totally different topic. Yeah. Kayla, amazing stuff. Everything that we've touched on here. Thank you so much for joining us, and love everything you're doing with Spexy. So how can folks connect with you if they want to continue the conversation or get on board with Spexy?
Yeah, so our website is bspexy, BESPEXY, bspexy.com. Email is Kayla@bspexy.com. You can find me on any of the socials. It's all connected to Spexy. So yeah, hit me up if you have any questions. We love to help. Myself and my team are always here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, Kayla, I know you guys are doing such incredible things, and really excited for these other things on the horizon. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us here on Akrinos Access with Kayla Ashlee, talking about team training and development in modern optometry. Look, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content like this. Also follow us on the socials and check akrinos.com frequently for, oh, goodness me, a wealth of really cool resources. Wherever you are, whatever you're up to, keep reaching for the stars. Eric Matei signing off. Take care.